If a smaller number precedes a larger number, we subtract the smaller number from it. Okay? Ayan. And we can only place one smaller number before a larger number. And just like this. Okay? So 1 minus 5, 5 minus 1 is equal to 4. That's why this is 4. This is now 5. Now, our 6 is simply a combination of the number 5 and number 1. Okay? Ayan. So again, when you see figures in succession with each other, we simply add them together. Okay? Yeah, so 5 plus 1, 6. Then 7, VII. And then 8, VIII. Then 9 is no longer VIII kasi pang-apat na yung I doon. So what we will do is we will subtract 1 from 10. Okay? So that's why the number 9 is IX. Okay? And then number 10 is letter X. Okay? Yeah, so that's how we write Roman numerals from 1 to 10. Okay? Again, this is a review, so I won't expect you to, to be excited by this. But I would like you to answer 2, 3, and 4 on your own. Okay? In fact, I have placed some of these in your lesson module. Ayan. Now, these are the Roman numerals and their equivalent decimal numerals. Okay, so we have 1, 5, 10, 50, 100, 500, and 1,000. Okay, just like what I mentioned before, right? The way that we interpret Roman numerals is based on their position. Okay, now, is it possible for you to subtract 1 from, let's say, 50? To mean 49? The answer is no. Okay? And there are certain limitations doon sa mga figures which we can subtract from the larger numbers. Okay? For example, for the number 50, you can only subtract 10. Okay? Yan. So we have 40, which is XL. Okay? Yan. So 50 minus 10 is 40. Then from 100, you can only subtract also 10. Okay? So we have XC to mean 90. Okay? Ayan. Okay? And for 500 and 1,000, we can only subtract 100. Okay? Ayan. So those are some of the simple rules, no, that you have to review in writing your Roman numerals. Ayan. So let's have some examples over here. So for example, here, no, to interpret the numeral, and this is XL, this is 40, so this is 45. Ayan. Now, J is here, no? Ayan. So there's a simple rule in pharmacy that if the letter I comes at the end of the Roman numeral, you can use the letter J. And that will actually avoid confusion with the letter L. Okay? So for example, here, this is LI. Okay, so that's basically 51. Next is XLVII. So this is 40. Then this is 8. So this is 48. And then this one, LX. Okay, so baliktad na. The smaller number comes after the larger number. So we add them together. So this one is 60 and IV is 4. So 64. And wait a moment. And this one, XVI, this is your 6. And this is 10, so this is 16. Okay, so 10 plus 6 is 16. And then we have here LXXX, tatlong X. So this is your 80. plus IV is 4. So that's your 84. Ayan. So, review lang naman, no? Ayan. So, please do review these in your lesson module. Now, in pharmacy, how are we using the Roman numerals? Okay. So, in fact, we use Roman numerals to designate the number of dosage units prescribed, as you can see here. So 100 capsules, or to indicate the quantity of the medication to be administered, 2 teaspoonfuls, or in rare instances in which the common or apothecary system of measurement are used. So grain is actually a unit of measurement that we still use in pharmacy, but it's not um, commonly used, no, in many other fields. Yan. So this is for grains. Phenobarbital, which is an anti-epileptic drug, is still prescribed in grains, although it's not recommended. Yan. So I think I mentioned number 4. Then following the Latin custom, remember that the symbol for the denomination comes first, followed by the Roman numeral. Okay, so for example, GRIV. Okay, so this is the denomination or the unit. It precedes the Roman numeral. Now, dates are customarily expressed in capitals. Ayan, so actually, I will just proceed to the next part para medyo malayo-layo marating natin dahil 2 minutes na lang. Okay. Okay, so next is fractions. Okay, so remember that fractions have two types. No, you have the proper fraction and the improper fraction. The proper fraction has a value less than 1. An improper fraction has a value greater than 1. In the proper fraction, the numerator is smaller than the denominator, while in improper fraction, the numerator is greater than the denominator. Okay. So remember, yung sinabi ko kanina, the mixed number can actually be converted into an improper fraction. Okay, so for example, 2 and 1/2 is actually, ayan, 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So 5/2. Okay, ayan, so this is your mixed number and this is your improper fraction. Yan. So, how are we going to compute this? No, ayan. So, sabi dito, you want to prepare batches of a formula with 1/4 ounce, 1/12 ounce, and 1/8 ounce, and 1/6 ounce. Yan. Ang tanong ay calculate the total quantity of chemical used. So, what are we going to do? First is you need to convert all these fractions into fractions that contain the same denominator, okay? Because the only way that you can add them or that you can do operations on them is through converting them in a fraction that has the same denominators, okay? Yeah, so least common multiple, okay? Correct. Yeah, so we will find the least common multiple of the denominators, no? Yung 4, 12, 18, and 6. Okay? So, ano yung least common multiple nila? Ayan. So, the easiest way is just to multiply them together. Okay? So, 4 times 12 times 8 times 6 times 6. You will get the least common multiple. Pero, hindi yun least. No? Ayan. It's a common multiple. Okay? So, 24. Yes, you are correct. No? Ayan. So, 24. Ayan. So, 24 divided by 4 is 6 multiplied by 1. So, 6 plus, ayan, 24 divided by 12, 2. 24 divided by 8 times 1. Ayan, so that's 3. And 24 divided by 6 is 4 times 1. So 4. Ayan. So now we are able to operate on the numerators. Okay, so 6 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Ayan, that's 9, 10, 11, 15. Okay, so 15 over 24. Ayan. So 15 over 24 has a low um, has a lower term, okay, value. So how do we do that, no? To be able to do that, what we're going to do is we will divide a common factor between 15 and 24, okay? So for example, 15 and 24, ayan, ano yung kanilang common factor? Ang common factor nila ay 3, okay? So remember that when you multiply or divide both the numerator and the denominator by the same number, okay? So again, if you multiply or divide both the numerator and the denominator by the same number, you get the same number, okay? Ayan, so tulad ng ginagawa natin ngayon, 15 divided by 3 is 5 and 24 divided by 3 is 8, no? Ayan, so we have the answer 5, 8. Ayan, so thank you for those who participated. Ayan, you are correct, no? Ayan. So take note of these common principles. Ayan, I will no longer be reading them. Basically, in this part, no, ang sinasabi lang is that when you multiply the numerator, it increases the value of the fraction. Now, when you multiply a whole number to your denominator, it decreases the value of the fraction. But when you perform multiplication on both the numerator and the denominator, then the value will not change. Okay, so normally we do that to convert one fraction into another fraction. Okay, so for example, we want to get a common denominator for the following numbers. Yan, tulad ng sinabi ninyo kanino, we will find the least common multiple. Okay, so yung common multiple nila ay and so yung least common multiple ng 4, 5, and 3. Ayan. So 5, 10, 15, 20, ito ng 5. Ayan. 30. 30, walang 30 yung 4. Ayan. So, hindi pwede yun sa 4. Okay. Ayan. So, so ang gagawin natin is, you will actually just multiply them. Okay, so 4 times 5 is 20 times 3, that's 60. Okay, ayan. So to get 60, ano ba yung ginagawa natin? Okay, ayan. So 60, 3/4. Ayan. So di ba ang ginagawa natin is 60 divided by 4. Ayan. Yun yung value na nilalagay natin dito. Okay, ayan. So 60 divided by 4, ayan, this is 15. Okay, ayan. So 15. So we will multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 15, okay? To get a value similar to 3/4, but with the denominator of 60, okay? So 15 times 3 is 45, ayan. So basically, that's what you do, no? When you convert fractions to have the same denominator, no? I mean, nagmo-multiply tayo ng same number to both the numerator and the denominator. Ayan. So now, when it comes to dividing naman, when you divide the numerator, yes, correct. No? That can be reduced to lowest term. Ayan. So when we divide the numerator with a whole number, it decreases the value of the fraction. But when we do that on your denominator, we increase the value of your denominator. Okay? So remember na for this particular number, A over B, ayan, tapos i-divide natin yung B ng let's say 1 over ng 1 over C. Ayan. Hindi pala i-divide. Yeah, i-divide. I-divide natin siya ng C. Ayan. So A over B, tapos B must be divided by C. Okay? Ano yung ginagawa natin? Okay? Ayan. So B divided by C, okay, that's actually equal to A over B times 1 over C. Okay? Now, minultiply natin ito. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin, ililipat natin siya doon sa itaas. Okay? So, that will actually be equal to A over B times C. No? We will get the inverse of that particular number. Ayan. Okay, so these are just some other examples na I think we can already move on to, ayan, kasi review lang naman. Okay, so remember this. Okay, before performing any arithmetical operation involving fractions, reduce every mixed number to an improper fraction. When performing an operation involving a fraction and a whole number, express, at least visualize the whole number as a fraction, having 1 for its denominator. Okay? Yeah, so always remember na, let's say meron tayong 3/4, ayan, and we want to multiply this by 5. Okay? You must imagine na yung 5 is a fraction with a denominator of 1. Okay? Yan kasi commonly nami-misinterpret to ng students. Okay? Yan kasi nasa gitna yung 5. So akala nila pati si denominator i-multiply. Okay? So remember that you will only multiply this and you will only multiply this. Ayan. So we have 15 over 4. Okay? Yeah, so basically, yun yung sinasabi nung second item. Yan. So how do we answer these questions? Yeah, so 64, what fractional part of 64 is 2? Okay? So ano yung ibig lang niya sabihin? Ibig sabihin lang, what is 2 of 64? Okay? Now, we can reduce this to lowest terms. And to reduce this to lowest terms, let me erase it. Yan. So, gawin natin 2 over 64. Okay, ano na lang, mga siguro 2 minutes. Yan, so 2 over 64. Yan, 2 over 64. Nasaan ako? Okay. So we will convert this to lowest term. So what we'll do is we will divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2. Okay? Ayan, to get the lowest terms. Okay? So remember, to get the lowest terms, you divide a common factor doon sa both numerator and denominator. Okay? So we get 1 over 32. Okay? Ayan. So next is, what fractional part of 1 over 16 is 1 over 20? Now, how are we going to interpret this? Okay, so 1 over 20 is what fractional part of 1 over 16? Okay, so basically yan yung ibig niya sabihin. So what we are going to do to convert this into fraction, no, into the lowest term, is we will multiply 1 over 20 by the inverse of the denominator. Okay, so we have 1 over 20 times 16 over 1. Okay? Now, of course, in your mathematics, you know that we can already cancel this. Okay? So the common factor I see 4. Okay? And so we divide 4 from both 16 and 20. So we get 4, and this one is 5. So the answer is 4/5. Yan. And lastly, we have what fractional part of 1 over 32 is 2? Okay? So again, dito medyo nakakalito siya, no? Kasi we know that 2 is a whole number and it is definitely bigger than 1 over 32. Pero ang tanong niya kasi is, what fractional part of 1 over 32 is 2? So ibig sabihin, the one that is in the denominator is still 1 over 32, and the one that is in the numerator is still 2. Okay, ayan. So remember na if this is how your sentence is or expression is written, this is how you're going to interpret it. Okay? And 2 is what fractional part of 1 over 32. Okay? Just like what we did before, we will multiply 2 by the inverse of 1 over 32. So that's 32 over 1, or simply 32. So the answer is actually a larger number, no? 64. Ayan. So medyo weird lang. Ayan. So letter C is actually a test of your understanding of the principles, no, without any prejudice to the actual values of the fraction or the number. Okay? And so I think I will have to end here, no? Ayan, kasi the next part is supposed to be a problem solving, which is by group, no? And anyway, what we will do is I already uploaded exercises in your lesson activity module. Ayan. Now, the next topic kasi after this is ayan. Decimal fractions, which is basically your fraction, but in a decimal format. Okay? So you may, for example, 0.2, 0.125, etc. No? Yan. So you can interconvert your fractions into decimal fractions or into decimal numbers. Okay? And vice versa. Tapos, next is another topic that, hindi. Ito, introduce ko lang naman, exponential notation. And so basically, exponential notation is used when you have a very, very small number or a very, very large number, okay? You are in a science program, so you are supposed to learn how to use scientific notation, okay? Yeah, so remember that in scientific notation, the base number should only have a number, should only have a value between 1 to 9, okay? Or 1 to 9.99, okay? So for example, 121 can be converted into 1.21, okay? And it's the best base that we can choose from. And dahil nagi siyang 1.21, we will multiply it by exponents of 10, okay? Now, ilang exponent of 10 yung kailangan? Kung ilang beses nag-move to the left or to the right yung decimal place. Okay? So, if the number from this number became this, okay? Yan, we will move the decimal place from right to left. Okay? So, 1 and 2. Yan. So, 1.21 times 10 squared. Okay? Or basically, 1.21 times 100. Okay? So, that's how we express the exponential notation. And then this one is still 1.21. Ayan. Times 10. Dahil gagalaw ulit tayo from right to left. Ayan. Positive value yung ating exponent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So 6 times. So times 10 to the 6. This one naman, 1.21 times 10 2, since maliit na number siya, lumaki, okay? We will move the decimal place from the left to the right, 1, 2, okay? So, negative value yung gagamitin natin. Next is this one, 1.21. 1.21 pa rin. Times 10. Then we count the number of times that we move the decimal place, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to the right. Dahil to the right siya, it's a negative value, negative 6. Okay, so that's how we convert very small numbers and very large numbers into exponential numbers or scientific numbers. Ayan. So actually, the last topic, no, I will just introduce them to you because basically you know this already. We have ratio and proportion. So basically, when we say ratio, it's a relative magnitude of two quantities. No, it's a fraction. Okay. Let's say, what is the ratio of male and female in this class? Okay. Let's say, kunwari lang, mayroon lamang na 11 lalaki in this class out of 48 students. So the ratio of male-female is 11 is to 48. Ay, mali. 48 in the class. So 48 minus 11 is 37. So the male to female ratio is 11 is to 37. Okay, so that's a ratio. Now, when you say proportion, basically, there's an equality sign. Okay, ayan. So yun lang yung difference nila. When you say ratio, it's an expression. It's not an equivalent. There's no equivalence. Pero kapag sinabing proportion, mayroong equal sign. Okay? Yan. So, ibig sabihin, a ratio is equal to another ratio. Okay? Yan. And these are some of the different ways by which we express the ratio. Okay? Remember that those that are at the outermost portion of your proportion are called extremes, and those in the middle ay tinatawag nating means. No? Ayan. So extremes and means. Ngayon, take note na when you multiply your extremes, it should be the same as the product of your means. Okay? So for example, if I multiply A by D, ayan, A times D, ayan, it should be the same as C, ayan, so hindi yan Z, ayan, equal sign yan, C times D, C times B, okay? Ayan, so the product of the extremes is always equal to the product of the means, no, in a particular proportion. And lastly, and variation. So variation expresses an inverse relationship. Okay, there are certain things with inverse relationship. For example, pressure and volume. And so meron silang inverse relationship. So ibig sabihin, the greater the pressure, the volume decreases. Okay, or vice versa. The smaller the pressure, the greater will be the volume of a particular gas. Okay, so that's actually a gas law. Okay, mayroon pang isang bagay, no, na inverse yung kanilang relationship. There's also concentration and volume of the solution, and that is very important na relationship in pharmacy. And that is our concentration dilution formula, which is C1V1 equals C2V2. No, it's actually an example of a kind of variation. So ano lang yung ibig sabihin nito? Whenever you dilute something to have a greater volume, its concentration will definitely be lower. Why? It's because you begin with this small amount, okay? Now, let's say itong small amount na ito ay galing dito sa um, part na ito. Now, let's say this is the initial volume, V1. Okay? Now, its concentration will be the amount M here. So, M over V1, that is the concentration C1. Okay? Now, let's say we increase the volume. Okay? So, magdadagdag ako ng tubig. Ayan. So, now the final volume becomes V2. Okay? So, what happens to the mass of or the weight of the substance in your original solution? Siya ba ay lumalaki rin? Or is it or does it remain constant? So notice that it remains constant, right? Ayan, hindi naman nagbago, no? In-increase ko lang naman yung volume. Ayan, tama? In-increase ko lang naman yung volume, hindi ko naman binago yung amount itong dot na ito. Okay? So ibig sabihin, here, the mass is a constant. Okay? So that's where we got this formula na C1 V1 equals M, that's the constant, okay? In any volume with a concentration C2 and a volume V2, the mass will still be the same. That's why we have C1 V1 equals C2 V2. Okay, so doon ang galing yung dilution concentration formula. Okay, ayan. So aside from those examples that I have given, di ba? The amount of affection that you have to a person is also affected by the distance. No? The longer the distance, the lower will be the affection to that person, perhaps. No? Ayan. Especially if you don't believe in long distance relationships or LDRs. No? But that's not science anymore. Ayan, so I will leave you to that. No? Ayan, so that's actually the end of our makeup class. I'm sorry it took a little while, no? Ayan, medyo overtime tayo, and I know that you still have to eat your lunch before your next class. So maybe you are wondering what will be covered in the prelim exam, okay? The coverage will be up to this point, okay? Ayan, so I will be including of course, most of our prelim exam will be about interpretation of prescriptions and medication orders, the parts of prescriptions and medication orders, medication verification, and all those topics that we discussed in the previous weeks. And then we'll have some interpretation of pharmaceutical Latin phrases and interpretation of abbreviations, yan, in prescriptions, plus a little bit of this, no? Review lang ng mga concepts ng calculations and measurement, no? I will only be asking a little of this, okay? Kasi hindi naman natin siya masyadong diniscuss and it's just a review of things that you already know, okay? Yan, like numbers, numerals, ratio, proportion, okay, those things, no? I will not be including dimensional analysis in your prelim exam because that is better to be included in your midterm exam because the way that we will compute conversions between systems of measure will be dimensional analysis anyways, so we'll leave the computation over there, no? Ayan, so we'll just have up to this point, no, in our lesson. Oh, sure. I can also give you an announcement on the list and perhaps ano yung expected na ano na percentage in the prelim exam, no, of each topic. Yan, so that you will be prepared. Yes, I will do that. I will be posting that in the LMS. Okay. Please answer the formative assessments in your LMS because those will give you idea about the questions that may come out in the exam. Okay? Kasi halos ganon yung binibigay ko talagang exam. Okay? I only depart kung doon sa actual content, but the way questions are asked, very, very similar. Okay, so if you answer your formative assessments in your lessons, you will be very much prepared for the prelim exam. Okay, perhaps you will also be asking how the prelim exam will be given. I will be using the ILS Cloud. Okay, and so I will be using the ILS Cloud for your prelim exam. We have not received our final schedule of examinations yet. But you will be taking the examination on that particular period of time. Okay. There will be a lab exam. So I have coordinated with Sir Romeo. Um, Sabi ni Sir Romeo, meron daw lab exam din during the prelims week. Pero I suggested that we separate the portion of the lecture from the laboratory so that you will not be confused, no? Kasi lalo na pag nag-shuffle na yung questions, ayan, you might be confused which one is for the lecture and which one is for the laboratory. So you may have two separate examinations in the ILS Cloud. One is in the lecture, the other one is in the laboratory. Okay? Ayan. Tapos, may question dito, multiple choice ba? Most will be multiple choice. Okay? Ayan. Siguro 60 to 80% will be multiple choice. There will be a little na hindi multiple choice. Pero most likely, dahil marami kayo, okay, most likely identification, okay, and the likes, no? I could give very few, no, items na essay, yan, pero very few, very few items. Most will be multiple choice. I haven't actually written it, but I have an idea of what to give. Okay, so 60 to 80% will perhaps be multiple choice. Gaano kahaba, no? Ayan, so you're not asking the good questions. Ayan, so so gaano kahaba yung exam? Maximum of 50 items, okay, in the lecture. Ayan, pag lumagpas ako ng 50 items, I might give you a bonus point. Ayan, pero iwasan ko na yon. Ayan, so maximum of 50 items. Good for 1 hour and 20 minutes. Ayan, but I think you can answer it in 1 hour. Ayan, kasi nga naman, wala masyadong computations this time, no? You will encounter computations again in the midterms. Okay? Ayan, so maybe I'll just let you go there, no? Ayan, if you have further questions about the examination, feel free to message me in the ILS Cloud. I may not be able to read your emails in my.dlshsi account kasi I don't usually read that email, no? Puro lang notifications ko kasi yun nandoon. Ayan, so I normally respond in the ILS Cloud Messenger. Ayan, or if you find me in the official social media account, no, you can also message me there, no, especially if it's urgent. Okay, ayan. So with that, thank you so much for attending our makeup class. Okay, so I hope it's clear naman. I forgot to mention pala, I might also introduce a little bit of significant figures, pero hindi masyadong detalyado. Okay, because some of the things about significant figures I still need to discuss with you. Okay, for clarification. Ayan. So siguro just knowledge of the basic stuff. Okay. The rest will not be included in the prelim exam. Okay. Ayan. So with that, thank you again. Thank you so much for attending our class today. And yeah, have a fine lunch. Okay. And see you again next week during your exam. Okay. So with that, bye-bye everyone. Sana may nakuha kayo kahit na paano, kahit na nirush natin. Okay, thank you so much.